Started.
Great. So welcome everyone. If I haven't had a chance to hear who you are, do feel free to still throw it in the chat. Feel free to tell us who you are and where you teach, what you do. My name is Wendeth, and I'm currently at Front Range Community College. I've been only with Front Range since November, but previously I worked for CCD. I've also taught with Arkansas State University and have started my ID career, so to speak, in California. So I've kind of been a little bit of everywhere. I've also done a lot of things. So I teach, I advise, I do instructional design, and it kind of puts me in a lot of different spaces, getting to know a lot of different people, which has been a lot of fun. And I also work with high school students and work with high school teachers who are teaching concurrent enrollment. So there's even another perspective on all of this. We are going to kind of jump right in. The first question I wanted to ask is, and you can just put a Y or an N in the chat, how many of you are coming at this from a design perspective? So you work as a designer or you design your own courses? Okay, awesome. And then how many of you all, and it could be and both, how many of you all also teach? Great. That's great. So today I'm probably going to come at this a little bit from both angles, because as a designer, I often teach teachers how to teach things, but then also because I work with students, I also use these tools to help students navigate how to do work. I don't have any slides. Also, I hate slides, but this I felt like was a much better presentation to do with showing the actual websites that we're going to. And I'm going to put the links into the websites that I'm utilizing. And I also have a document, which I will share that link as well with you, so that if you have another screen and you want to follow along and kind of do your own thing along with us, I would love for you to do that, because what I'm hoping is that as we're working through some of the samples, if you want to pop in and interject and say, oh, here, this is cool, here's the example that I got for it to pop up for me, I would love that. I just met someone who's a doctoral student in the sciences, and that is honestly an area that I will never understand. And so I've used ChatGPT when I've tested it out to actually have it explain something to me like I was a 5-year-old, which was really kind of cool. So we're going to start really quickly, and let me get to the right page here. So I'm going to show, I know a lot of us are familiar with ChatGPT. I'm going to just briefly show some of the things that I've done with it. What I'm going to be really talking about today is how do we utilize AR writing to actually help us teach, whether it be like official writing, like we're teaching composition, or we're just trying to help students come up with like how to draft an email, how to write a small essay, that type of thing. And so what I've done is, this is my ChatGPT. One of the benefits of ChatGPT is it really does, it keeps track of your chats, your conversations with the system. I like that because it allowed me to create several examples preparing for this presentation. And then also, if I say I was starting on a draft and then I wanted to write something else, I could change it up a little bit. So that's really cool about ChatGPT. I think we all know enough about ChatGPT to know that there are a lot of limitations. Some of the things that it tells you are just not right. And you may only know that if you happen to be talking about something that you know about, or your student gives you something that you happen to know about. I am not an expert really in any specific field, and hopefully this is, I don't know why this is, uh-oh. There we go. So I actually was showing one of my current students the limitations of ChatGPT. And so I picked something that I knew about. And I have a filmmaker friend who's out of Pakistan. His name is Saman Alam Khan. And I know him personally. We've been friends for a long time. And so I wanted to show how not everything that ChatGPT gives is not accurate. So I asked it to tell me about Pakistani filmmaker Salman Alam Khan. And really, the first sentence is about the last thing that is true about this. Now, he's not a well-known filmmaker, you know, again, this was just a sample where I could pick out specifically what I knew would be wrong about this example. And so when we're talking to students and we're talking to teachers, it's always a really good thing to, you know, admit its limitations. Firstly, it could help students not use it to write a paper, and then we have to deal with, you know, plagiarism or whatever we're going to call these violations. But then also I think that there's a lot of young people that rush to technology, rush to trust technology, and have no idea where technology is limited. And so having an example of something that you can point out the issues, I think is a really good idea. So yeah, this was a situation where I was like, nope, all of this is not real. And then I started to wonder, is there another? Salman Alam Khan is not, you know, it's John Smith. So then I Googled it, and there's not another filmmaker, or at least not in the way this is written. So fair. This is not accurate. And so that was a really good example for me to be able to speak very quickly on. So one of the things I did, and again, when we're talking to students and trying to help students process, what are we going to be writing about today? One of the things that I asked ChatGPT to do is tell me about some famous athletes around the world. Again, and we've had these conversations with AI writing, the window of some of its context tends to be very small. It's obviously limited both on the people that write the code and then whatever it finds in the atmosphere of whichever source that it's pulling from. So if it's pulling from Google or pulling from Bing. So I asked for famous athletes around the world. What it sadly gave me was 7 out of 10 were women from the United States, which if I'm trying to get students to broaden their horizons and think about things outside of the United States, this sadly didn't really give me a lot of options. And yes, I can do regenerate responses and stuff, but I just, again, am using this to kind of show these are some of its limitations. I recently had a student who was trying to write about how to get people to use less plastic. And so what I was teaching them how to do is find out why people use plastic and kind of move that way when you suggest alternatives. And so I just asked, why do people use plastic? And then it gave a list. And so again, being proactive and teaching students how to use these functions to help generate creative juices rather than just the assumption that it should write your paper for you, especially because we know that the papers that it writes aren't great. One of the things that I was also going to show you, because the thing that's different about ChatGPT than the other AIs, and we're going to look at Wordtune today, is trying to find, I think it's here. So I ask it to give me a college essay with citations on the harms of light pollution. And one of the things that I've read early on from other designers and instructors were it puts citations in there. But if you do a little bit of digging, you find out these are not real. I'm sorry. So again, this as an instructor could be an opportunity to point out to them like, hey, even if you do this, it's not going to be real. I'm so sorry. So what I did was I looked at these citations on the reference list, and it's definitely gotten better, but these are not 100% accurate citations. And I'm so sorry. Just as an example, when I Googled some of these, the names are correct, but in this first one, this Chalapa et al., they were cited in this paper about that is listed here, the circadian phase assessment. And so again, as an instructor, maybe you're doing a little extra work, but this is a really good way of actually showing students, and again, being proactive about like, hey guys, I wouldn't have it write this paper because I know that it is not 100% accurate. However, again, here are ways that you can use ChatGPT to help you find things or help you come up with ideas. So I'm going to move on from ChatGPT, and we're going to look at my favorite, which is Wordtune Spices. This is the main page. This is what I put on that Google document. Hopefully everybody's been able to get in okay. And then this is what happens once you get in. Like everything else, there's a free version and there's a premium version. This is like Grammarly 2.0 to me, because it takes what you're writing, and then it helps you develop that writing. This Ask Wordtune to Write is actually really new. So I started playing around with this today. And if you click the plus button, it actually only gives you, not sure why all of my websites stopped working, but it actually only gives you a few options. So it's a blog post. There we go. Blog post, a meeting agenda, a Twitter thread, and then a LinkedIn post. And I don't know about your students, but none of my students are using any of these things. But I will tell you, it was kind of cool. So today I created a meeting agenda about why to be on time. So I don't need a meeting about why to be on time, but maybe I'm trying to think of like how to organize a lecture, how to organize maybe like how I want to write a paper or something like that about being on time. So while this is just an agenda, it's still a really good way to kind of show some form and show some structure on how to utilize this whatever topic that you've chosen as a paper or as a lecture or something of that vein. And then of course, with Wordtune, you can accept, regenerate, or discard. I am not going to do anything, because with Wordtune, you only get so many regenerations, and I don't want to run out of regenerations. I'm not the doctor. So that's a new thing. That's a new tool of ChatGPT, or sorry, of Wordtune Spices. I really like it. But what I'll do is I'm going to delete that. So here's where again, this is not ChatGPT. You don't ask it to write your paper, but say I want to write harms of light pollution. Or actually, I'm going to pretend there are many harms of light pollution, right? So this is my prompt. Maybe this is what your students are asking about. So to the right, you have what's called your spices. And there are a lot of different spices to use. And this is where, again, you can utilize these things to help students engage in what they're writing, learn about how to formulate a paper. I actually created an assignment on using AI around speech comm, because I was developing a lesson in one of my speech comm classes. And I wanted them to use this, to write this. And then I wanted them to go through and engage with it in another way. So there's a lot of really cool things. So there are many harms of light pollution, and then I can define it. And it's going to think about it for a second, and then it's going to give me what it thinks that I might want to put in there next. So it does start writing for you. I can accept it. If I click another suggestion, it'll just give me something else. And then I can click a previous suggestion to take me back, or I can do another suggestion, and it'll usually cycle through several options. And then I can just say, fine, and I accept this. Maureen, I can't see the chat. I'm just going to ask really quickly. Are we in a good place? Am I speaking too quickly, moving too quickly?
I think it sounds great. And okay. I don't see in the chat. So I think we're
okay. Sorry. I sometimes forget I'm doing this in front of a room full of people. It will not provide sources in the way that ChatGPT will, but it will if you ask it to give you a fact. And I thought there were two, but if you ask for a statistical fact, it will very quickly and not super obviously, unless you're looking for it, give you the location where this was found. And I've tested this out, and these have all so far come back accurate, 100% accurate. So again, if you're teaching students to use this, and maybe it's because they're not using, Google Scholar, or they don't have access to all of the scholarly research, or you don't need them to, this is actually kind of a really good way to teach them how to find these sources that they might not find by just simply doing a Google search. So I'm going to click on this statistical fact, and I'm just going to keep it there in my tab, right? Because I don't necessarily need to read this entire article unless you want to use that as part of this teaching mechanism. But I'm going to keep that because then I may need to go back and then use that in my citations. So I'm just gonna accept this for the sake of moving us along. And then I'm gonna give you, like, again, you can actually add like comic relief. Everybody's sense of humor is different. It's pretty subjective, but it's kind of nice that, you can kind of throw something in there that sounds a little bit more casual if you wanted to. And then if you don't want to do it, I'll just delete it out of here. And then at the top of Wordtunes, you'll see that there's a casual option. And what that does is it'll pick something out of here, and then it'll give you a different option of how to say it. So this is in the more casual way. This is in a more formal perspective. And then you also have the shorten and the expand. So these are really cool. Again, if you're trying to teach students, my daughter is taking Comp 2 in concurrent enrollment right now. And we make the joke about, word count, word count, word count. Sometimes you just got to throw some stuff in there for word count. So formal can also help if students are struggling with hitting that word, hitting that word count. Yeah, so before I move on, is there any questions or thoughts? Has anybody tried this on another screen and you've come up with like a really cool example that you would like to share with the class? And I'll stop sharing for a moment. Oops. Hi, Alex. Yes, I will put the link. So this is the link to the Google document. And that's got the link to the Wordtune spices that we were just on. So if no one else wants to share, and maybe you haven't, I'm all about participation points not being linked to sharing out loud. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to something else that is fairly new in Wordtune Spices that I also really like. If you click, and this link is also in that document, but if you're in Wordtune Spices and up at the right-hand corner, if you can see it, it says read and summarize. If I click the read and summarize button, it gives me an opportunity to upload. So this could be a PDF that you've given your students, to read in class. You can paste a link from an article. You can also paste text. I actually just allowed it to give me a sample document today. And I'll open that up. So again, and I teach sort of an FY, like first year experience, how to college type class. So this is really cool because we talk about annotating our writing and what we're looking for when we're writing. And sometimes it's really nice to have something other than your voice telling the students what to do. Or they go home and they want some extra help. And I apologize again, all of these websites are being really slow right now. I think I actually have one. No. Well, unfortunately, this is not loading for us. Hopefully, try another one. Yeah, I apologize. I even had one up earlier, but I wanted to go back. Here we go. So this is the original document on the right, and it comes out of this particular. This is the link. This is the source. The document is example document, cross-cultural differences in memory, beliefs, and mental schemas. And then what it does on the left is it gives basically an annotation or some notes on the article itself. I am old and I can't help think of like Spark Notes or what was it, the books you could get on the book you were supposed to read, the Cliff Notes, and it's kind of something to that extent. I will be honest, I because this is fairly new, like really new, I haven't had a chance to like really do a deep dive and see how good it does. But if you click on here, it actually highlights for them where this information came from. And so that is something that is helpful because, again, if you're trying to teach students the back and forth, this is a really good example. Sometimes we use like exemplar work in our classes for students. This is another way of doing that, or allowing them to work with the machine to help them understand how this works. And so again, they can choose to copy and paste. They can paste a link. I was going to, before I got started here, actually try one of the articles that I had recently read to show as an example. So this is actually one of the articles that I have linked on the document for you. I don't necessarily make the case that we need to go back to Luddism because the machines are coming, but I do like to hear these other perspectives. And so this is what on the left-hand side, this is sort of the annotation. This is the notes that pull up from this document. So this is actually kind of really cool to me. And so this is an example of, I'm on this website. I don't know what they're talking about, but my teacher's making me read this. And this can come in and kind of work as sort of a help or a tutor. So maybe I'm not making students annotate this particular article, but maybe I want them to read this article and then come to class with some thoughts or questions or something. I want them to understand the article. And then theoretically, they come to my class and then they're like, well, the article talked about this and these are my thoughts on it. So again, it's not really trying to help them learn how to use this to do their homework. It's about me as an instructor trying to help them learn how to use this to generate that creative thinking, those creative juices when they do come into class to chat about things. But yeah, so the other thing that I was planning on doing, darn it, sorry about that. So the other thing that I was planning on doing is just really kind of checking in with you all too in learning about, are any of you guys utilizing, whether it's ChatGPT or any of these other writing tools in your classes? Are you using them to, I've read that people are using them to create whole lesson plans or write songs or whatever. Are any of you using it? And to what degree do you find that it's cool or limited? And I think I saw Dennis. Yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
Hey, first of all, I have to applaud you on this fantastic presentation.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
I am learning so much. I teach all the GPT at my college at Pikes Peak, and I'm just floored with this. You know, I'm just like a little puppy looking at this. So one of the things I do is just last night, I just asked it to, I'm comparing Bard that just came out yesterday.
Yeah, I have an article about that. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm comparing Bard against Chat GPT. I'm also signed up for it. I also get it on my phone, blah, blah, blah. So I asked it last night to write a fun country song. And so it gave me the lyrics. And then I put the lyrics into Zero GPT. It barely said 65% matching. So we still can't figure out as faculty if they're copy and pasting, but it is getting better. I started teaching this in November and Zero GPT said, I don't know, but now, now it's getting better. And I'm thrilled with doing this. I show it in my classes and I tell them how easy it is for us to determine that you used it, but I show them why. It's basically prompt. Like everybody tell me a story about throwing oranges through a fan in the middle of a hurricane. And somebody will, I just made that up. Somebody will come up with a story on that. And that's what these prompts do for natural language. It's basically a natural language encyclopedia. So I'll stop talking and let you go back.
No, I think that's fantastic. And actually, while you were talking, I was pulling up that article that I read recently about ChatGPT versus Bard and sort of its comparisons with one another and where they're at right now. I mean, all of these articles can change. All these facts can change in a matter of an hour, right? But yeah, no, I think that's really great. I think it's a really good way to utilize what's out there and also teach students, this is what you can do with this. I don't know if any of you have used any of the photo generators. That's been a big thing. If any of you saw the Pope in a puffy jacket recently, I asked it to show me. So I'm a big cricket fan, and I was just trying to find somebody famous playing cricket. And so I chose Obama. Oh, so yours turned out a lot better than mine did. If I can find, I don't know if I have it on here or just on my phone, but I asked it to create me a picture of Obama playing cricket. And I asked numerous ones, and of course the one, the free ones that I have access to. And it was so bad that I think probably a 3-year-old probably could have drawn a better picture of a human playing cricket in that moment. So I think there are some spaces where it's really cool to get students in there and figuring out how it works. But obviously I don't know that everybody's at the level of creating and fooling us that the Pope is in a puffy jacket. So I'm just catching up with the chat here. So we've freshmen at CSU, and they're having discussions about what part of their job will be around ChatGPT. Yes, so as a communications, so my first degree is in communications, I know that we started developing like certificates and degrees around strategic communication, social media communication, and trying to teach people how to utilize these tools in a way that actually helps society move forward. And I put the link on that Google Doc, but Vanderbilt University came under fire for very quickly, I would argue too soon, utilizing ChatGPT to create a message going out to students after a shooting in Michigan. And they got a lot of flack because they didn't go back and sort of edit it and humanize it a little bit. And so I imagine that this is what we're going to be teaching students, which is another reason why I'm so big on teaching students how to use it and not pushing them away from it, because this is really probably going to be part of everybody's job. It's probably going to be somebody's job, right? And so you want to stay employed, right? You want to keep your job when, in 5 or 10 or 15 years, you're going to have to know how to utilize these tools. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. And then Kim, oh, sorry, let me back up. Alex, curious to learn ways to support technology and faculty. So Alex, I don't know if you want to unmute or just hop into the chat. Are you asking how to support your faculty in these kinds of things like teaching lesson plans, or are you asking more about how to support them in following the technology?
Yeah, just trying to keep up. It's so new. I love technology. I've been working with Photoshop when it came out in 1.0. So like just kind of keeping up with it. And I have many faculty who are like, oh gosh, this is going to ruin the way students write. They're going to plagiarize. And I just feel like the fear or anxiety is what a lot of people are focusing on. And as a creative, as an artist, I get a little worried about like people taking all the imagery and making it their own. But if it is new, it will be fine. But anyway, there's a lot of the questions. So I appreciate the positivity you're bringing to this.
Yeah, I mean, and I think some of my positivity comes from my skepticism. Like people have been writing other people's papers, people have been buying people's papers. Like these are not, people have been, copy pasting images off the internet and then digitally remastering them to be something different. Like nothing's new under the sun, right? And I went to a remote panel discussion about it. And one guy said, well, I hear a lot of people talking about ChatGPT as being like a calculator. And he said, it's not a calculator because calculators don't make stuff up. And we're still there, right? We're still there where it's not perfect. I would argue that Wordtunes is probably better at writing a paper. But that's been my experience. And it's not like I go tell students, you should have this one write your paper and not this one. But, I think that everybody, and I think ChatGPT has the right backers, and that's why we've been talking about it, right? And not the entire AI writing system. But yeah, I think that, so like, that's what I try to just kind of, and in fact, I had parent teacher conferences with my daughter's concurrent enrollment college comp teacher who has admitted that she's got all of the kids' handwriting papers now because of ChatGPT. And I just tried to be nice and say, you've told the students you think they're going to cheat, and I said, I understand where you're coming from because it's new and you don't necessarily know how to respond. And I said, but what I would like as a parent is for you to have that conversation with the students and say, this is not about me assuming you'll cheat. It's about me trying to know how to teach you to use the technology. And it's so new, I don't know how. honestly, even if that's not true, right? But I just don't want students sitting in any classroom thinking, oh, my teacher doesn't let us use technology because they think we're going to cheat now. You know, it doesn't help morale.
Or even the dialogue or question about how do we promote your authenticity?
Exactly. Yeah.
How do we
And
promote
that's
your
where,
own words so you'll learn from the technology, but yet still have your own space within it, maybe?
right. And we kind of have been doing that, right? So like, again, if I'm going to Google, top international athletes, the difference between Google and say an AI writing source is that Google's going to give me a bunch of articles. And let's face it, it can take a really long time to get through all of those Google articles. And I can ask ChatGPT, I don't know what we're talking about in science. Tell me why we use plastic, right? And it's a much faster way to get to now you're writing about it, right? And so I think that's when you're looking at students and, we talk about like accessibility and different kinds of like, neurodivergent students and the anxiety around writing, like this can also be an accessibility tool. This helps students get to the heart of what they're trying to do for your class.
And I just want to piggyback one thing, but I know Aziz has a question. Just this idea of like, maybe they reference everything they found through these resources and then they take that and I mean, just ways to use it and not be afraid of it. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I looked at all these resources from this technology, but here's my assessment or here are the things I take from it.
Yeah. And I did ask writing teachers, because that's I want to be sensitive, right? I don't want to be like that designer that doesn't care, because I'm not, but that's how I can come off. And so I talked to a few writing teachers because I felt like that's the place that I could see it harming education, like like we don't really teach the writing in science necessarily in the same way. And so I was asking around, and several of them said, I would absolutely know the difference between what my students wrote and what ChatGPT wrote just by creating one discussion question, and so they had a very sort of like, I'm not even going to entertain the question because flat out, I'm probably going to, at least today, I'm going to know the difference between what Johnny wrote and what ChatGPT wrote. So yeah. Kim said that she started experiencing with a beta version of, is it Nole, an AI generator with an instructional design focus. I actually don't know about this one, Kim. And so I am going to take this link and open a tab really quickly so I can play around with it later. But yeah, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I just found it in a campus technology newsletter and it's a little rough, but it will create flashcards, it will create quizzes, it will create a course outline for you. And with all of that, you get an embed code. So it's something you can actually put into your LMS that would, again, quick engagement with a flashcard or a quick quiz or a knowledge check. So I played with it for about an hour or so, and I was really impressed when I gave it a block of text and I said, create a quiz from this. The awkward part was what I thought were key things from the text. It didn't quite think were key things from the text.
Right.
So the quizzes and the flashcards that it made were great about 60% of the time, but you can go in and edit those. So it gave you a really quick tool, and right now it's for free, to create that quiz, whatever, and then embed it into your LMS. So I would recommend people play with it right now while it's free. I have a feeling when they perfect it a little bit more, it could really catch on.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. And it would be good because I know of multiple schools, and in fact, schools that I've been part of that don't have designated designers, and teachers are out there, they're being, highly encouraged or mandated to make sure that they have a shell even for their face-to-face classes, but they don't. They're not designers. I mean, poor instructors, some of them they don't even know yet how to be instructors. And so I can see this even being used as a teaching teachers kind of a tool as well, once that gets, to a better place. That's really cool. I'm excited about that. The other thing I wanted to point out with the Wordtunes, and this is actually in an article that I think I have in that document. I'm just going to double check really quickly here. I may not have, but I'll link this article. So the article was about AI 21, which is the company behind Wordtunes, and they do have API, by the way. So the idea is that we would eventually, or maybe now, can link it depending on your LMS, but they are in the iOS can now translate Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, Hindi, Korean, Hebrew, and Russian into perfect English. And I will tell you that as someone who's worked with international students and has done a lot of research around international students, even from just that small lens, how great that is. If you've got a student, especially because I've been listening to teachers complain for years about having students whose English is not their first language try to write college level writing. And again, this is something we could teach that student. So you have that student who's coming in and it's easier for them to process the information in Hindi or in Arabic, and then them being able to utilize that as a better way to translate. And it's really good. It would be a really good tool then also to help them learn English and learn English writing if, you know, if being here is what they're going to be doing for work or for their education. So that's another thing that I really like about Wordtunes. I haven't checked it. I speak Hindi. I don't read Hindi, and so I am not at all the person to try to check something on that level. But it's really exciting to see that that's where they're going with that. Anybody else? Dennis, I saw that you popped back on. Did you want to share something else?
Oh, no, I don't want to step on your time, but I sent you
Oh, no, you're good.
of Time Magazine. I have it on screen if you wish.
I saw that. Yeah, I've got it tabbed open.
Wish I can talk on 30 seconds on it if you wish.
Yeah, feel free.
I'm disabled. Go ahead and open up the screen.
All right. Let me.
So while it's coming up, and I started high school in, I don't know if you can still see me. I started high school in 1973, and in 1972, the first calculator came out. I don't know if can anybody see me on screen here? All I see is.
Yes, we can still see. Mhm.
So this is the the EC100. This is the original calculator that came out from Radio Shack, and it was under $100. Now back then, minimum wage was like $2.20. So this was like a month's worth of pay. So compare that to now, right? What's a month's worth of pay? And so when these came out, boy, did this not go over very well, because we always had to use these slide rules, right? And so I remember in high school, our first day of classes, they just came right out and said, you'll basically go to detention if you have one of these. These are the tools of the devil, as they told us. And all the way until 1977, I had to use the slide rule. Even when I joined the Air Force in 77, I still used the slide rule. My first calculator I bought was in 1978, and I felt like I was cheating. So then this Time Magazine article came out just slamming that we're going to get dumber because of these calculators. So now when a student goes into your class, like I teach business stats, when a student comes in and says, I forgot my calculator, I rifle through the drawer looking for something with spider webs or something on it, right? Here you go. But otherwise, I tell them, well, you're going to have to figure out the cubed root of a negative number, blah, 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 on your own. But now, so what do we do next week when a student walks into our English class or our writing intensive class and says, I forgot my chatbot? Pretty cool. I'll yield my time to you.
No, that's really cool. And I'll link that article on that document in case anybody's interested in reading it. But yeah, I mean, we've technology has been part of all of this. I mean, I was jealous that my kid grew up in an age where she had Grammarly and the squiggly little lines under the words that she spelled wrong, because I was the kid that was like, if I don't know how to spell the word, how can I look it up in a dictionary? And I mean, I was also kind of a brat, but yeah, I think that there is so much potential here to help students do things better. I also think that from a critical thinking perspective, one of the things, we keep saying the children are going to save us, and I work around a lot of high schoolers, and I'm not convinced they're going to save us yet. But I think one of the things missing is we don't teach them how to find information. And I think that they know the technology they are taught and they are exposed to. And so I think, again, this allows us to be proactive and teach them how to critically think through the information that they're getting. Here's an article. One of the things that I did in the speech comm assignment that I created with this, it was kind of a multi-part assignment, and it's a little bit longer than what I would normally do in a speech comm class because we're teaching AI writing. And I asked them, ask Wordtunes for the 3 most famous speeches. And it's pretty narrow, right? It doesn't give us a whole lot of examples. It gives the ones that probably everyone in this room would probably think of, right? Martin Luther King, Winston Churchill, not really varied. And of course, in my classes, I try to encourage students to find the stuff that no one's talking about. And so I said, okay, fine, use whatever Wordtunes gives you. And then now we're going to think about these examples from that perspective of it was all about war, or it was about, like, you know, fighting against oppression, which these are not important situations, but like, are there not other speeches out there? I did one in Chat GPT, and I think it gave me like Oprah Winfrey's commencement speech, right? Which again is at least another genre of speeches. And so I said, okay, you can use whatever Wordtunes gives you, but then you have to evaluate. And they had to ask these questions from sort of like a social perspective, like, you know, the people that it gave you, are they all from the same era? Are they all from the same, you know, country or whatever? And I tried to make it broad enough in case they did get different examples. And then I said, okay, now you got to go listen to that speech, or you have to go read the transcript, so that I made them engage with the speeches, but I basically let Wordtunes tell them which speeches they were utilizing. And so that was just my way of trying to incorporate Wordtunes into a public speaking class, which I got really excited about. I don't know if the students are going to be as excited as I was. Anybody in the room want to share a little bit about how either Chat GPT has, or one of the things you're thinking about as it relates to your specific industry? So maybe Frank, I don't know if you've had to deal with this in like the sciences at the level that you're at, or if anybody in here teaches. I don't know. I love that Dennis used math as an example, because to be honest, I run from anything that's about math. So Karen just asked, how are you handling citations or tracking where the AI summaries come from? It's a really good example. And so as I mentioned on the Wordtune Spices, they can click on that link and they can see, and again, I use this to kind of show what is a valid source. And so they can click on that link and they can utilize that link as an article that they're going to read now about that topic, and then they can learn how to cite it. With the Chat GPT citations, because they're not real, it's a little bit more difficult, but you can still have a really good conversation about it because they're close to real. So I'm going to open up this page here. Let me close out some of these other ones so that it doesn't give anybody a headache. So in the Chat GPT, where I asked it to give me citations, I specifically asked for citations. What I did was I just basically highlighted and copied and pasted these people into Google. And I actually think still have the pages up. So here's the article that Chat GPT quoted, a circadian phase assessment by ambulatory monitoring in humans, right? So I just Googled that. Oops, sorry, this thing popped in my way. Let's see. Come on. So I just Googled that, and the original paper, came up. And what I found was, here are the people, they wrote about circadian disruption and the people are real, but this is not the article that Chat GPT cited for them. And so, you know, this is a really good way to say, hey, by the way, this is why this paper would get you into trouble. And then B, also, here's how you can utilize a reference page. And I'm thinking of mostly of our undergrad students who are learning writing. Here's how you can use a reference page to actually help you find references in whatever it is that you're writing about. I don't know how many of you guys dealt with Wikipedia. You know, Wikipedia, not everybody, a lot of people hear somebody quote Wikipedia and we kind of roll our eyes and we say, Wikipedia is not real. But what I've tried to tell students, because students love to try to quote Wikipedia, is I try to explain to them, Wikipedia is like someone else's paper. You got to scroll down to the bottom and find the sources and then go to that source. And then you can also figure out if it's real, right? ChatGPT is almost exactly the same in what it's doing. It's giving you some information. It's telling you some people. In this case, it's not telling you 100% with accuracy, but it's giving you enough factual information that it's actually a really cool way to go, oh, but these people really did write a paper and you can go read this paper by these people. And I will quickly stop sharing. And yes, Dennis.
Yeah, I've read something about that. Now that I can just copy and paste, I can basically write 30 days of blog with just a couple prompts and use the DAL-E to create the images, you know. But if I'm going to be citing my work and putting it into Wikipedia, Wikipedia doesn't check. So that fake, I've seen this before, where that fake Chat GPT reference is going to be in Wikipedia now as a reference.
Yeah.
So people will click on it and be like, oh, I'm confused, it doesn't work. Or they'll just copy and paste it.
Right, exactly. And I
got it.
really quickly, I'm going to go back because I forgot about this part. Because again, I don't spend a lot of time in ChatGPT. Frank mentioned that yes, you can ask for the citations with the web URLs. We had a guy, Chris Lux, who is part of our system, and he actually demonstrated citations a lot more in depth with ChatGPT and talked about what that looks like with the URLs as well. So yes, you can make it go a little bit further into I guess proving itself, for lack of a better word, because again, it's going to prove that it's not giving you 100% accurate information. I see that we're getting the 5 minutes left mark. So really quickly, if anybody has any parting words, any last questions, I'd love to be able to hit on anything that you have that you might ask. I hope Karen, that I was able to hit on your question enough. Again, remember that with Wordtunes, we can open that link and then, you know, the students can use that as their citation. Also, please don't forget to do the session evaluation form. Even if you want to talk about how horrible this was and it was totally boring, please actually put that on there, because then, you know, I don't want to do this to anybody else. But thank you for coming. And I hope this has been eye-opening or informative, or if you have a little bit more of a nugget to put into your pocket, I would love for that. And my email address is going to be in the chat. Please feel free to reach out anytime. And I would love to chat about this article. Feel free to comment on that document as well if you ever want to share anything. And I'm sorry I had to cough, but thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of Elk. I hope to see some of you guys down here on Friday.
Be sure to look at all those chats. Such a great session, and everybody's saying thank you and such good things. So I'm going to stop recording for now, but we'll still be on for a few more minutes. So if you have any lingering questions, please ask.